But for months, one senator in particular has been saying that business ties is the angle that investigators really ought to be zeroing in on. In addition to being a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, he's also the ranking Democrat on the Finance Committee.
I believe a key to a successful investigation is following the money. The Treasury Department is responsible for other programs and investigations that may uncover suspicious financial activities by Donald Trump and his associates. It is already a matter of public record that entities associated with Donald Trump have been the subject of millions of dollars of fines for willful, repeated, and long-standing violations of anti-money laundering laws. Information about Donald Trump's finances, his family, and his associates may lead to Russia.
Joining us now is Senator Ron Wyden, who serves on both the Finance and Intelligence Committees and who participated in today's Intelligence Committee hearing that featured the brand new acting FBI director. Senator Wyden, it's really nice to have you with us tonight. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Let me ask you about this issue that you have been pushing, I think, almost harder than anybody else in Congress. The idea that the president's finances and specifically his business ties are key, or sort of at the center of the bullseye in terms of figuring out whether there is anything actionable or anything serious to worry about in his ties with Russia. Why have you believed that all this time?
I've always thought that when you're talking about shell corporations, property transfers, Donald Jr. said for years that an extensive amount of their portfolio involved Russia, that you had to follow the money. I will also tell you that we asked Clint Watts, the former FBI director, about this. He said, "You're absolutely right, Senator. You ought to be following the money, but you also ought to know that you should follow the trail of the dead bodies," so that there is a real connection here to really getting at the question of conflicts of interest and making sure that the interests of the American people come first.
Senator Wyden, I don't know that much about the Treasury's Financial Crimes Unit. I know some of the sort of heroic stories about them tracking terrorist financing, about them tracking down people who are violating sanctions that have been put in place for national security reasons. But you've now announced that you're going to hold up one of the president's nominees, the president's nominee for Undersecretary of the Treasury, until your committee gets these records from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network at the Treasury Department. What does that part of the Treasury Department do, and why do you think those records are so important?
Those records are so key because they are really going to finally illuminate some of these connections between the Trump organization, his associates, and the Russians. As you know, there have been an extraordinary number of press reports. For example, in the case of the dossier, and I come back to the dead bodies, there are reports of people who disappeared in connection with that. There is a real interrelationship between some of the charges and the serious allegations that are made and this whole question of getting access to the documents. And I've always thought it's about the financial records. As you know, I'm the sponsor of the legislation to require the president to disclose his tax returns. Same thing. When you're not able to get the information about the way he conducts his business affairs, then you have some real questions when you see relationships with the Russians that his own sons admit to.
Senator Wyden, do we know for sure that the Financial Crimes Unit at the Treasury Department is investigating either the president himself or his campaign or people associated with him? Do we know that for sure? Is that public information, or can you tell us whether or not that's true?
I can't get into all of the details, but I consider that the key place, Rachel, in order to get to the bottom of this. I mean, obviously, we are learning more about this literally by the hour. We're getting on top of the financial records. I think that's essential. I think we had a slap your forehead moment this afternoon, this interview with Lester Holt. By his own words, it seems to me the president fired Mr. Comey to end the investigation. So we're getting new issues presented to us really almost by the hour.